Okay, since actually most of you seem to be fine with the last video that wasn't all that smooth, but maybe sometimes also a bit rough and silly, I plan to make this a more common thing. Because in the end, I think we will both benefit from me just being the way I am, a little bit more flawed. So maybe sometimes a little bit something will happen that is not planned, but maybe it will also be enjoyable. But what I also think as a YouTuber you sometimes need is just luck. Because I don't know how many times I was asked to review Vernee products just to tell people that I unfortunately have no access to those phones. But fortunately enough, just about 3 weeks ago, GearBest approached me and asked me if I want to review products from them at to around $200. And when I saw the Apollo X, I just had to review that, especially since so many people have told me how good the Vernee Apollo X Lite is. So in this video, we will find out if the Apollo X is as good as people told me in hand before. And this was something weird. Okay. First, design and build quality. What I definitely like here is the purple color, absolutely nice. It attracts a few fingerprints, but it's actually fine. And what I also like is the build quality, because you really have to bend it very hard just to get the slightest squeal out of it. And it actually feels also very nice in the hand, because as you can see, it gets ever so slightly narrower towards the back, and therefore with the quite edgy, but also slightly curved front here, it feels very comfortable in the hand, very secure to hold, and it's not all that bulky, so actually quite nice. What I also like here is the fingerprint reader normally, but for some reason here it just stopped working properly in the video, because I've tried it in the last attempt and it just doesn't want to unlock anymore, because in my notes I wrote down reliable fingerprint reader. It's not a fast one, but I don't know. Since yesterday it just doesn't want to work anymore, so I'm sorry that I can't really demonstrate it, because it usually worked just fine. So this is something that I can't really show off otherwise anymore. We will see also that the camera is protruding a little bit along with the LEDs. The headphone jack on the left upper side, here with a dual SIM nano slot, and we also have an SD card tray in one of them. Then we have USB Type-C, the speaker on the right and the mic on the left. The only thing that I'm not the biggest fan of are the buttons, because even though they are placed very nice and they click good and they feel good, they just rattle way too much, because even just if I type or tap the screen, you will hear this rattling all the time. That was quite annoying. Then we also will see here somewhere a notification LED, no capacitive buttons, but on-screen buttons. And since the fingerprint reader just failed from now on, even though I tried it with a reboot, it just doesn't work. I would say we are done with the design. And we also have actually, by the way, a quite good oleophobic coating. So let's get to the display, which is definitely the strongest side of this phone, because what we have here, thanks to mirror vision, is a lot of customizability, flexibility to adjust the screen to what you want, because you can use contrast, saturation, picture brightness, and all this can be set, and it actually works quite nice. The only thing that I would have to point out that the actual contrast of this phone on its own isn't all that strong, but it is good, because everything else with about 400 lux, it's quite bright, the viewing angles are mostly stable, the white is good, the blacks are quite okay, the normal amount of IPS glow. I have to say I really like the sharpness overall quality of this panel, because colors also seem nicely balanced, everything. And due to mirror vision giving you so much flexibility, I can definitely tell you that this is a quite good display without any issues. Now what about this speaker here? Yeah, I guess it's quite obvious, because the speaker is actually quite loud for what it is, but the quality is not all that good. It sounds extremely tinny, extremely weak, almost kinda broken in some way, because I at first thought this can't be right, but it seems to be the way it is. What is quite loud are our notifications, so if you just depend on very loud notifications, you will definitely get this, but a good speaker experience is definitely something you won't get. But what you can then use is the headphone jack, because that one is actually quite okay, absolutely no problems, better than the average headphone jack in terms of quality and also sound. So let's get into, yeah, and I don't know what's wrong with the fingerprint reader. I really don't know, sorry. Okay, let's end all apps and see how quick some of those launch. And I gotta say, just in terms of speed, the phone is actually fine. But I don't get quite why this phone seems to be less smooth and just not as performant and just not as right as it should be. Because there are phones with the same chip that I reviewed, like for example the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4, that just work overall way nicer, and you will see this here. Because the browser is mostly something that is quite okay. Because let it finish and we will see here browsing is fine. It's never really extremely smooth, and there is a little bit of some micro stuttering, but apps in general, just as you can see here, just don't work all that smooth. So it is quite a fast device and it's quite consistent, but consistent just not on a high level, which is a little bit disappointing after all, because I don't know what they did. And sometimes I also notice if I scroll through a site, it slows down and it speeds up. So even the scrolling speed on its own isn't all that consistent. Otherwise, the multitasking would be absolutely okay. No further comments here. Gaming performance was, I would say, also a little bit below what I expected, because it's definitely below something like a Snapdragon 625 and also something like the Helio X20 that is used here, because once again the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4 performed just noticeably better. You can still play most games, you just won't get the highest frame rates, a little bit below, maybe moderate. It did heat up a little bit, but nothing to be concerned about. So playing games is still an option, but you won't get the best experience. One thing that is absolutely great though is the battery charging, because it charges even slightly under 1 hour and 20. So this is really fast, but 70% for an hour YouTube is definitely below the average. And the battery life on its own is also not that great, because what I got in normal use on mobile data was 3.5 to maybe 4 hours, and on Wi-Fi about 5.5 hours, but even maybe possible 6. But the problem is not that, because I was actually surprised why, even though we have a 3500 milliamp hour battery, the battery life is nearly where the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4 was, that had a little bit of a bigger battery, but still. So I was confused. Battery life I just expect to be poor, not properly optimized. But Daniel from Android Cosmos actually told me he did a measuring of the battery with a multimeter, and what he measured was just 1800 milliamp hours. So he thinks maybe either they use some kind of broken batteries that are maybe just not full capacity or something like that. I don't really want to get much into that, but this would actually explain why the battery life just isn't where it should be with this processor, with the normal optimization and with the battery size. Standby drain was okay, but overall the battery life is decent. Just about decent, but it could have been so much more. So, sorry, I think it will once again work at some point, but in terms of software, of course, we have, as you can see here, a standard kind of approach for a launcher. Quick settings look like on stock Android, just themed black, which is actually nice. I prefer that. Then we, as you can see, also pretty much just get stock Android, which is absolutely fine though. It's a little bit more on the unspectacular side, but it works. What you have is some options here. For example, the navigation bar, you can rearrange the buttons, add another button, but otherwise you don't really get much. It's running Android 6.0.1. It runs absolutely solid, it runs fine. The only thing that didn't work out all that great was the camera, because when I wanted to record a video, the app just froze. When you use the front-facing camera though, and then the video camera, then for some reason it worked, but yeah. Okay, already talking about the camera, let's go into the selfie cam. And here we can already see that the actual quality of the front-facing camera is surprisingly good, because this is mostly quite sharp. Colors seem actually quite nice. So definitely a good front-facing camera. That one actually surprised me quite a lot. Indoors though, not so much. Here it definitely degrades quite noticeably. It's just not the best low-light cam, as you can already see here. Even with the flash, it just didn't improve all that much. And of course, the shutter gets noticeably slower, the autofocus, and the pictures, I would say, are maybe just about okay. So definitely not something great. If you go outside, it has the potential to actually get decent pictures, because the autofocus works quite reliable most of the time. You won't really get though amazing pictures at all. It always feels a little bit smoothed out. Details are quite okay, colors seem actually quite okay, but it never really feels the way it actually should in terms of quality. So I would say acceptable main camera for sure. It has the potential to be good, I would say, maybe something like that, because you see still quite a lot of blurry pictures after all. But yeah, definitely not on a level that you could expect in this price from a Chinese phone. For example, just the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4 delivered so much better pictures. For some reason, the video doesn't load, and that's why I would say just switch, because the video on its own is actually to forget anyways, because it was very blurry. There wasn't all that much of a autofocus at all, so you had to tap to focus. So I would say let's just talk about the pros and cons to see what we get here. And it's actually not all that much, because what we get here is a quite good design and build. We get a reliable fingerprint reader, even though this is something I think I will have to scratch off from now. We have a really good display, which is definitely the highlight here for this device. The headphone jack is okay, which is also a good thing. The performance, I would say, is mostly still decent, but not much more. We have a stock Android-like software, a good front-facing camera, and at least an acceptable main cam. But on the negative side, also not that much, but quite important things. We have rattling buttons that were quite annoying. We have a poor speaker that you should pretty much just forget besides notifications. The performance should be better with the Helio X20. I just don't get what happened here. Then we have just decent battery life, maybe due to the battery actually being smaller than it is nominally. We have very slow mobile data, which was my biggest issue in using it in normal use, because for some reason, even though the reception was quite good and I had all the bands and everything should work out quite fine, internet for me was super slow. It was a pain in the ass and very hard to use. So that would actually alone already be a deal breaker for me. We have a weak low light cam and a weak video cam. And in the end, this just leads me to not being able to recommend this phone. This is a little bit unfortunate. If you want a good phone at around this price range, just get the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4. Check my review for that. I was very ecstatic for this device in this price range to deliver such high qualities. And I hoped to get this here as well, especially from what I heard from so many people. But I didn't really get that, which is even more so unfortunate since I work together now with GearBest, and if some of you buy things over the affiliate links, I will get to be able to review more phones. I guess this won't be a thing in the future though, so I don't know what will happen. So yeah, maybe if you want to buy the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4, you can use that link, and maybe we'll see some more reviews from GearBest devices. But otherwise, I can't really say much more. That the phone on its own is just about decent, but just too flawed to be recommended by me. So it could have been actually quite okay. They would have just had to properly do it. They should have just made the buttons not rattle. They should have had a proper battery size, if that's really the case, and they should have just optimized the system a little bit more, because there are some inconsistencies. Because on paper it actually looks like a strong phone. And that's why I don't quite get all the hype about the Vernee Apollo Lite that I didn't review though, so I can't judge that. But this would have been it. You can still check the GearBest links, but otherwise, enjoy the day, and you can leave me a comment, you can leave a like and a subscription. Until next time, bye.